start by Sagiv telling us how he started by building a data company or data product, essentially, very data engineering heavy, to then solve for complex data challenges to end up being sort of acquired, merged into another company. So tell us about how the journey started.
Okay, back 2017. Beersheba, yeah. We're way before, way after Beersheba. Moved to America.
City is right.
Yeah. For those like that. Yeah, sure. Back in 2017, joined 180 by 2, a really early stage startup. I started as a founding engineer in 180 by 2. Lots of ambition, lots of initiative, running all the tech at 180 by 2, running it with a CEO, was more like the product side business. I was taking the big initiative on the tech, heavily on big data. What we did is audience solution for marketing, marketing technology, trying to self-driven, creating machine learning, AI technology, in-house, developing everything from scratch, only with raw data coming into the company. And when I say big data, I actually mean big data. 10, 20 billion rows a day coming into the company, trying to solve how the hell I'm going to process this amount of data.
But with the domain or category being audience.
Right.
Tell us about that a little bit for those who don't know what that is.
Right. The audiences can be a variety of audiences. It can be from the mobile phone, like each one of you has a mobile, right? And we actually, not we, other companies tracking everything we do, right? Let's face it, there's no more privacy in the world, right? It's something called MAID, mobile advertisement ID, all the way to cookie, IPs, and in this day and age, there's so many more IDs join into the competition. So we collect everything, all of that, coming into the company on a daily basis, hourly basis, creating a whole big machinery that processes the data and output a meaningful audiences for marketing. Decision makers and the engineering decision maker, marketing decision makers, so we can target a unique, specific group of people that can help marketers reach out to the right people on the B2B side.
So that is super interesting. So in general today, monetization or marketing in general has so much to do with big data challenges.
Right.
Audiences, being able to figure out what audiences should I go after while keeping things private, all through IDs that link different devices, browsing habits, and so forth. So within that category, you guys went out to actually sort of compete and offer a new kind of product.
Right. The new challenge and the new initiative that we bought at 180 by 2 is the B2B side, a unique set of audiences that we can actually process and output within no time. Back in the day, 2017, I know it sounds like not that far time ago, but APIs was not a thing. And real-time data was not a thing, and we were trying to bring what we know from other industries into the marketing world, right? Creating like an on-demand API-based solution for intent, for example, right? If you're going to look at the biggest competitor for intent, Boaz, you had to wait like a week until you actually can get data. There was like no API involved. So we were trying to be creative and load billions of rows of data every week into a database to support like an API-based solution.
So let's talk about that journey. So, how did you approach that challenge, and how did the solution evolve over time? What is the data stack to support such a challenge look like?
Started in Azure, went all the way to AWS, introduced into the EMR back in the day, and we did see some good challenges and good solutions coming from EMR. That elasticity of EMR, right? We can actually scale up, scale down, use like different kind of machinery inside of AWS to support our infrastructure was a great thing. We can actually process more data, right? And optimize the cost. as a bootstrap company, as a bootstrap startup, you always care about the cost. You always care if the CFO is going to reach out to you in the middle of the day, hey, we have to reduce the cost, right? You have to be creative how you process the data. And over the time, we actually found out that EMR is not the only solution to process data. C++, if you're going to go to the low level of C++, can actually perform well when you do different kind of operations over EMR. Rust is a really new technology coming in the last few years, also coming as a nice player into the big data processing world. It's kind of like it's an ongoing project, and it's really happy to be part of the community of Rust that making a change in the big data processing.
So let's dive deeper into Rust a little bit. So how did that change things for you? If you were to start from scratch again now, what would it look like? What mistakes won't you repeat?
What mistake I won't repeat? Oh, so many. As a startup, you make lots of mistakes, right? Coming from choosing the right infrastructure, the right cloud provider, what is the right tools that you're going to use, the right technology.
The right co-founder.
Don't even get me started with that. But yeah, the right tools is really, really important. We started our backend, for example, in Python, which is great to start, but it was not scalability enough to support a really big data server solution. So we had to reroute and change into Clojure. Clojure as a functional programming, right? To give you the JVM behind the scene, the powerful of Java Spring Boot with an easy way to develop, right? And support a big data structure. That's one thing that I think we did right when we, in the middle of the way, stopped, think, and choosing a new technology. We actually started within the company something called a tech committee, right? A few people actually joining. You can always bring up new technology. The door is always open. We always like to hear about new things going on, new initiative in the open source community, in a partnership, the partnership world, discussing technology, trying to be always using cutting edge technology.
Let's go back to the business side now. So, so the product being built, how did the company sort of evolve and end up as Anteriad?
You mean the acquisition?
Yes.
Whew. Okay. 182, right? Fast forward 3 years, we got acquired by a company named Mary Direct. For those of you who know in the marketing and technology world, it was a really challenging acquisition. A company, Mary Direct, the early 2000 company with an early 2000 technology, and us, 180x2, as a 2020 technology, trying to get together and talk technology, trying to migrate. Lots of challenges, lots of pushbacks. We're actually in the SDK industry, kind of collecting data ourselves. For those of you who know Swift and Coco Codes, we actually have placed an actual SDK on a mobile phone for multiple apps that we were a partner with to actually collect real-time data. And every second that the server is down, we miss data. So time is actually matters here. I had to rewrite the server in Java that night to make it back to life. Yeah, it was a really, really long night, but
it's like an episode in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, pretty much. It was totally worth it. Since then, we changed the entire infrastructure and everything was smoother.
The episode is based on that story.
What are your thoughts about the intersection between the software engineering and data engineering? Because you seem very software engineering in nature, but you do a lot of data centric.
Nobody in data engineering likes Rust or C++.
I don't think it's well familiar for data engineering. That's true. It's mostly in the software development world. There's lots of initiatives happening right now in the GitHub of Rust. to support Parquet, S3 integration. It's not actually there yet. We're actually helping the community right now to have like a better support. Rust is going to be the next big thing in big data. That's my guess. It's being recorded, so we will see. But
We will see.
we will see. Exactly.
Arrow? Do you have an arrow wrapper for us?
Yes, it's fairly new actually. It's fairly new.
So there's a future for us.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm seeing the future in Rust, but it's not going to be the only infra framework that I'm going to use. It's always going to be a combination because we identify the strength of EMR, Rust, C++, we combine them together, and even we also use Airflow, like probably every other company. And even within one pipeline, we have EMR, Rust, and C++ for different use cases to optimize the time and cost.
I think it came up multiple times in our podcast and something we believe in general, like the convergence of software engineering and data engineering. There's so much influence in both directions happening.
Right.
I think software engineers 15 years ago, 10 years ago, typically looked down on data-heavy projects. Well, that's DBA work. I
Right.
didn't graduate computer science to do that, but now like it seems the coolest thing to do in software is data-intensive stuff. And it's picking up heavily, which is great.
My team is actually doing both. I call them data engineer for the most time, but sometimes they actually do software engineering. Rust, for example, probably heavily on the software engineer, right? And we're trying to recognize it, especially with our online data processing tool that we in-house developed to support the platform that we own. We have like a marketing cloud platform, but we do lots of like heavy load processing ad hoc on demand. So we developed something the internal name doesn't matter, right? But it's like a really heavy machinery for online data processing, and there's a lot of software development inside of it. So my guys are definitely experiencing the data world and in the software world because they have no choice.
What else is in the stack there, data stack? Okay. What we didn't cover?
So I have Clojure, which I'm a huge fan, Rust,
What's the data format?
Parquet. Yeah. We even converted a few of our partners into Parquet. Some of them will like refuse to use Parquet for some weird reason. CSV, TSV, JSON, for God's sake. But Parquet is definitely the way to go. That's what we think. Recently, for full disclosure, we're also using Firebolt. Yeah, our past got caused because of a challenge that we had, right? Especially on the online data processing. Giving people response and like an actual output, meaningful output within no time. It's always a challenge, especially when you're trying to process like 50 billion rows, or in our case, I think it's 250 billion rows of a data set. You get an interesting engineering challenge. But you always have to be creative, right? Especially when you don't have a huge bank behind you. You have to always be even extra creative. So we're actually evaluating Firebolt, and I think it was like a natural partnership. The way we work together, it's definitely
No, we don't talk Firebolt.
No, okay.
We don't talk Firebolt.
We got along.
Thank you for mentioning us, but yeah. It's the least interesting part of the data stack.
Right. They don't support data.
Exactly.
Why did you start this company anyway? We refuse to talk about it.
Right. The data world is always going to be challenges because you're getting more and more data every day. You always collect more data. 180 by 2, we started with 1 billion rows a day. Quickly it became 20. Now it's reaching the 100 billion rows a day of data that we have to process. someone asked me today, like, how much data we actually process in a month, and it's like in the petabytes a month. And yet, you always have to be careful about your, again, in my scenario, the AWS cost. It can easily ramp up pretty quickly. I'm sure most of you experience that.
Yeah, elasticity is expensive.
Right?
It should be cheap, but somehow it becomes expensive, and yeah.
I miss the days when people complain about the cost of office.
I miss multi-tenancy in one server.
That's how Jeff Bezos flew to space, right?
Any questions from the crowd?
Well, I answered it.
You scared them with Rust. they want a DBT. Okay, Sagiv, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.